Let your body settle now, and allow your mind to grow still, as we drift together toward the sands of ancient Egypt. Rising from the Giza Plateau on the western bank of the Nile, the Great Pyramid has stood for more than 4,500 years. Its builders aligned it with remarkable precision to true north, a feat that still draws quiet wonder from those who study it. Beneath its outer surface and deep within its limestone core, a series of passages and chambers wait in stillness. The Grand Gallery, rising steeply through the heart of the pyramid, is a long corbelled hall lined with polished granite. At its far end lies the King's Chamber, a room built entirely of red Aswan granite, its ceiling formed from 9 enormous slabs. Above the King's Chamber, archaeologists discovered 5 low spaces stacked one upon another, now known as the relieving chambers. On the rough walls of those upper spaces, workers left red ochre graffiti, the names of the teams who quarried and hauled the stone. Below the pyramid, a rough-hewn chamber was cut directly into the bedrock, though it was left unfinished and lies open and silent. In 2017, a large void was confirmed above the Grand Gallery using muon imaging, a technique borrowed from particle physics. This newly found space, roughly 30 meters long, has not yet been entered, and its purpose remains a gentle, open question. Some researchers suggest it may have been a construction chamber, others believe it could hold objects placed there by the pyramid's original architects. For now, the hidden chambers rest quietly within the pyramid's great mass, holding their secrets the way the desert holds its silence. Long before the pyramids were built, ancient Egyptians watched the night sky with quiet, patient devotion, learning the slow rhythms of the stars above. Among all the constellations they observed, one group of 3 stars held a special place in their understanding of the world and the afterlife. The 3 stars of Orion's belt, known to the Egyptians as the constellation of Osiris, rose each year in a pattern that never wavered. Researchers in the late 20th century began to notice something remarkable when they looked down at the 3 pyramids of Giza from above. The positions of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure aligned in a gentle diagonal, offset slightly in the same manner as the 3 stars of Orion's belt. Robert Bauval, an engineer and researcher, spent years mapping this correspondence between the pyramids and the constellation, publishing his findings in 1994. When the Milky Way was overlaid onto a map of the Nile, the river and the galaxy seemed to mirror one another in a quiet, sweeping reflection. The ancient Egyptians called the sky above the Milky Way the Duat, a vast celestial realm where the soul of Osiris dwelled after death. Scholars believe the pyramids were not merely tombs but a map of the heavens, built so that the pharaoh's spirit could journey among the stars. The shafts cut through the body of the Great Pyramid point precisely toward the stars that the Egyptians considered most sacred and eternal. Alnitak, the lowest star in Orion's belt, corresponds in the Orion correlation theory to the largest and oldest of the 3 pyramids, the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Over many thousands of years, the slow wobble of the Earth's axis shifts the position of the stars, so the sky the ancient Egyptians saw was slightly different from our own. Yet the relationship between those 3 stars and those 3 pyramids remains, a quiet and enduring connection between stone and sky, earth and eternity. The Great Sphinx of Giza has rested quietly on the plateau for more than 4,000 years, watching the desert slowly change around it. Carved from a single ridge of natural limestone bedrock, the Sphinx stretches about 73 meters from paw to tail, a truly enormous presence in the landscape. Its face, tilted gently upward, gazes toward the east, toward the place where the sun rises each morning over the horizon. Scholars believe the face was carved to resemble Pharaoh Khafre, who ruled Egypt around 2,500 years before the Common Era. Beside the Sphinx, the Pyramid of Khafre rises steadily into a pale sky, still holding a cap of original smooth casing stones at its very peak. The body of the Sphinx was buried beneath desert sand for long centuries, protected without anyone intending it, simply by the slow drift of time. When excavations uncovered its full form in the 19th century, workers found the Sphinx surrounded by small temples built of polished granite and alabaster. The Valley Temple nearby still stands, its massive blocks of red granite fitting together so precisely that modern engineers find it remarkable to study. Wind has slowly worn the Sphinx's nose away over the centuries, leaving the face with a kind of quiet weathered dignity, as ancient things often carry. Some geologists have noted that patterns of erosion on the Sphinx's body suggest it may have been exposed to heavy rainfall very long ago, in a wetter era of ancient Egypt. The plateau around the Sphinx holds a quiet, open stillness, especially in the early morning when the sky is pale and the air is cool and clear. Far away across the sand, the three great pyramids of Giza stand in their familiar gentle diagonal line, holding the horizon steadily in place. And the Sphinx rests before them all, as it has for millennia, patient and still, its stone gaze drifting slowly toward the early light. Deep within the heart of the Great Pyramid of Giza lies a chamber built entirely of granite, carried from quarries far to the south. The granite was quarried at Aswan, some 800 kilometers away, and slowly transported along the great river to Giza. Each block in the king's chamber weighs between 25 and 80 tons, yet they were fitted together with extraordinary precision. The chamber itself measures roughly 10 meters in length and 5 meters wide, its ceiling 9 granite beams spanning the entire width. Above the chamber, builders placed 5 relieving chambers, one stacked upon another, to distribute the enormous weight of the pyramid above. In the uppermost of these spaces, ancient quarry marks were found, written in red ochre by the workers themselves thousands of years ago. The granite blocks show no mortar between them, held in place simply by their own immense weight and the care with which they were placed. Within the chamber rests a single lidless granite sarcophagus, its surface worn smooth by centuries, quietly waiting. The sarcophagus is slightly wider than the entrance passage, meaning it was placed here as the pyramid itself was still being built around it. Slowly, over centuries, the pink and gray tones of the Aswan granite have deepened, the stone itself carrying the quiet memory of its long journey. The chamber is perfectly oriented, its walls aligned with the cardinal directions with a precision that still draws the careful attention of those who study it. There is a stillness to the king's chamber that many who have stood within it describe as profound, the heavy granite absorbing sound and breath alike. The ancient builders have been gone for more than 4,000 years, yet the granite they chose and placed so carefully endures, unchanged and unhurried. Deep within the Great Pyramid of Giza, a long narrow passage descends gently into the earth, carved from solid limestone thousands of years ago. This descending corridor slopes downward at an angle of about 26 degrees, stretching roughly 100 meters beneath the pyramid's foundation. Ancient Egyptian builders aligned this passage with remarkable precision, orienting it so that starlight from the northern sky once entered its opening at night. The passage walls are smooth and carefully fitted, the work of thousands of skilled craftsmen who shaped the stone with copper tools and wooden mallets. Slowly, the corridor leads downward past layers of the pyramid's core, through courses of rough-hewn limestone that form the great monument's inner body. At the base of the descent, the passage opens into a roughly cut subterranean chamber buried some 30 meters beneath the plateau's surface. This underground chamber was left unfinished, its ceiling rough and irregular, as though the ancient work was quietly set aside before completion. Scholars have long wondered whether the chamber was abandoned by choice, perhaps as plans for the pyramid's design quietly shifted during construction. A small horizontal tunnel branches from the chamber, leading further into the bedrock in a direction that remains, even now, not fully understood. The air in these deepest passages is still and ancient, settled over thousands of years in the quiet darkness of the plateau's stone heart. From the mouth of the descending passage, one can look upward toward the open sky, the entrance framing a pale rectangle of blue above. The plateau of Giza stretches quietly around the pyramid, sandy and vast, carrying the long silence of a landscape shaped by ancient hands. In time, visitors from across the world have descended this same passage, moving slowly through the stone, breathing the cool quiet air of ancient Egypt. From the base of the Great Pyramid, a long stone causeway once stretched gently toward the river, connecting the sacred plateau to the waters below. These causeways were not merely roads, but carefully aligned corridors of pale limestone, sloping gradually from the pyramid down to the valley temples beside the Nile. Archaeologists estimate that the causeway leading from Khufu's pyramid extended nearly half a kilometer, a quiet path worn smooth by the passage of countless generations. The Greek historian Herodotus once wrote of a magnificent covered passageway here, its walls adorned with carved reliefs of figures and animals, though much of that ornamentation has long since worn away. Walking such a causeway in ancient times, one would have moved through a roofed corridor of white stone, the air cool and still, the sounds of the river growing gradually closer. At the lower end of each causeway stood a valley temple, a squat and massive structure built where the floodwaters of the Nile once lapped at the plateau's edge. The Valley Temple of Khafre still stands today, its walls formed from enormous blocks of pink Aswan granite, polished and fitted together with astonishing precision. It was through these valley temples that the bodies of the pharaohs were likely received from the river, beginning their long ceremonial journey up the causeway toward the pyramid. The Nile in those ancient days flowed closer to the plateau than it does today, its seasonal floods reaching the very feet of these valley temples each summer. Boats carrying stone and supplies would have docked near these temples, unloading their cargo at the edge of the water before the long procession inland began. Traces of a harbor basin have been found near the Giza plateau, its silted outlines preserved beneath centuries of accumulated sediment and sand. The causeway of Unas at Saqqara, not far from Giza, still preserves fragments of its decorated ceiling, small carved stars scattered across a pale stone sky. These quiet stone pathways, stretching from the edge of the desert down to the ancient river, remind us how deeply the Egyptians wove water and stone together into a single sacred world. Far to the east of the Great Plateau at Giza, across the still waters of the Nile, lie the ancient quarries of Tura. For thousands of years, the workers of the Old Kingdom came here to cut the finest white limestone Egypt had to offer. Tura limestone was prized above all others for its smooth, almost luminous surface, so pale it seemed to hold the light of the sun. The quarries stretched deep into the hills, their long tunnels carved gently into the earth over many generations of patient labor. Slowly, block by block, the stone was freed from the living rock with copper chisels and wooden wedges soaked in water. Each block was shaped with care, its edges squared and smoothed before it was ready to begin its long journey across the river. Wooden sledges were used to carry the heavy stones down toward the river's edge, where flat barges waited in the quiet current. The Nile and flood made the crossing easier, its swollen waters bringing the boats closer to the plateau on the western shore. Across the water, the rising form of the Great Pyramid waited, its outer casing still hungry for the white stone from Tura. The casing stones fit so precisely together that a blade of grass could scarcely be pressed between their polished faces. When sunlight fell on the finished pyramid, the Tura limestone blazed white and gold, visible for many miles across the desert plain. In time the outer casing was taken away by later builders, yet the memory of that brightness is still carried in the stones that remain. Even now, if you look closely at the old quarry walls of Tura, you can still trace the quiet marks left by hands long at rest. Beneath the golden sands that stretch quietly around the Great Pyramids, archaeologists have slowly uncovered something remarkable and deeply human. Not far from the shadow of Khufu's pyramid, a sprawling ancient village once sheltered the thousands who built these enduring monuments. The site was discovered quietly in 1999, when archaeologists led by Mark Lehner began tracing the outlines of bakeries, breweries, and sleeping quarters. Long rows of mud brick barracks stretched across the desert floor, each one sheltering perhaps 50 workers through the cool desert nights. The builders were not slaves, as was once imagined, but skilled craftsmen and laborers who received rations of bread, beer, and salted fish. Fish bones and cattle remains found in the middens tell a quiet story of communal meals shared beneath an open desert sky. Grain storage silos, round and smoothly plastered, still held traces of the emmer wheat that fed a workforce of perhaps 20,000 souls. Copper tools and unfinished stone fragments lay scattered where craftsmen once shaped limestone blocks with steady, patient hands. A small cemetery nearby held the remains of workers buried with care, their bones showing signs of healed fractures tended by skilled healers. The tombs were modest but honored, some decorated with simple inscriptions that preserved a name, a title, a life given to the pyramids. Slowly, season after season, the village was built up and torn down in rhythmic cycles, following the annual flooding of the distant Nile. Workers rotated through in organized gangs with names like the Friends of Khufu, giving even the heaviest labor a sense of belonging and purpose. In time the village fell silent, covered gently by the desert, and the story of those patient hands rested quietly beneath the sand for 4,000 years. Deep within the Great Pyramid of Giza, past the Grand Gallery, lies a quieter chamber, known today as the Queen's Chamber. Despite its name, no queen was ever buried there, and the chamber held its secrets in gentle silence for thousands of years. Running from this chamber, two narrow passages extend diagonally upward through the pyramid's solid limestone body. These are called the air shafts, though for centuries they were sealed at both ends, never touching open air at all. One shaft angles toward the north, the other toward the south, carved with remarkable precision through the pyramid's thick stone. For a long time, explorers assumed these passages were simply ventilation channels built to allow fresh air to circulate. But when researchers examined them carefully, they found the shafts had been intentionally blocked with fitted stone from the very beginning. This discovery invited a slower, more thoughtful question about what purpose these silent passages were truly meant to serve. Some researchers have suggested the shafts were aligned with particular stars, guiding the pharaoh's soul toward the heavens. The southern shaft of the Queen's Chamber appears to have pointed toward Orion's belt during the time the pyramid was constructed. In 1993, a small robotic explorer named Upuout was sent slowly up the southern shaft, moving through the narrow stone channel. Near the end of the shaft, the robot gently came to rest before a small limestone door fitted with two copper handles. That quiet door remains one of the pyramid's most peaceful mysteries, waiting patiently in the stillness of ancient stone. Along the southern face of the Great Pyramid at Giza, archaeologists discovered something entirely unexpected beneath the desert sand. Buried carefully in long narrow pits carved directly into the bedrock, there were wooden boats, sealed away for thousands of years. The first of these solar boats was uncovered in 1954, and it emerged from the earth remarkably whole, its cedar planks still carrying a faint scent of wood. Scholars came to call it the solar boat, or the ship of the sun, believing it was meant to carry the pharaoh Khufu across the heavens after death. The vessel measured over 40 meters in length, built from thousands of separate pieces of wood fitted together with extraordinary precision. No nails were used in its construction, instead the planks were lashed together with ropes, allowing the wood to swell gently and seal itself against water. There were oars still resting inside the pit, along with a canopy frame, suggesting the boat was equipped as though ready for a real voyage. Nearby, a second sealed pit was confirmed to exist, and it waited untouched for decades before researchers finally opened it in the early 1980s. Inside the second pit, a second boat lay disassembled, its wood darkened over millennia but still carrying the unmistakable shape of a graceful hull. Some researchers believe the boats were actually used on the Nile during Khufu's lifetime, perhaps to carry his body to the pyramid in a great funeral procession. Traces of mud and organic material found on some of the planks hint quietly that at least one of these boats may have touched real water. The boats now rest in a dedicated museum built directly above the original pit, so visitors stand just a few steps above the place where they slept for millennia. Slowly, the desert wind continues to move across the plateau at Giza, and somewhere beneath the sand, other secrets may still be waiting, perfectly still and undisturbed. Deep within the Great Pyramid of Giza, a massive sarcophagus of red granite rests in the king's chamber, silent and still. The sarcophagus was carved from a single block of Aswan granite, quarried nearly 900 kilometers to the south. Its rose-red surface holds the faint marks of ancient tools, the patient work of craftsmen who shaped stone with copper and sand. Slowly, scholars have come to understand that the sarcophagus was placed inside the pyramid as it was being built, too large to pass through any corridor. The granite itself was brought by boat along the Nile, drifting slowly northward through the green valley toward Giza. In time, the sarcophagus settled into its place within the king's chamber, surrounded by walls of polished pink granite rising to a flat granite ceiling. The chamber itself is precise and spare, its walls fitted together with a smoothness that still draws quiet admiration from those who walk inside. The sarcophagus has no inscriptions, no painted figures, no text to tell us whose name it was meant to carry. Its lid is missing, lost somewhere in the long centuries between the builders and the first explorers who descended into the chamber. Far away, the quarries at Aswan still show unfinished obelisks and stones abandoned mid-cut, quiet witnesses to the scale of ancient ambition. Geologists have measured the sarcophagus carefully, finding it weighs roughly 3.5 tons in its hollowed form. Through the millennia it has rested undisturbed in that chamber, growing smoother at its rim where countless hands have reached across the stone. And so the sarcophagus remains, calm and enduring, holding its silence as the desert wind moves softly across the plateau above. At Giza, the desert plateau holds its breath as the longest day of the year approaches, slow and inevitable. Ancient astronomers among the pyramid builders understood the sun's path across the sky with quiet, patient precision. Each year, as summer solstice nears, the sun climbs to its highest arc, casting shadows that fall in ways the builders seem to anticipate. On the solstice morning, the shadow of the Great Pyramid of Khufu grows shorter than on any other day, drawing a precise dark line northward across the sand. There is something deeply calming in knowing that this same line of shadow fell here 4,500 years ago, just as it falls today. The Egyptians called the solstice a moment of balance between light and the long returning warmth, a quiet turning of the year. Scholars have noted that the Great Pyramid's faces are oriented so precisely to the cardinal directions that solstice shadows align almost perfectly with its edges. On the west face, that solstice shadow retreats slowly as noon approaches, revealing the aged casing stones in full, warm afternoon light. Far to the south, the smaller pyramid of Menkaure casts its own slender shadow, pointing quietly toward the distant Nile. Ancient records suggest that festivals were held at Giza during solstice periods, when the alignment of light and monument felt most alive. The shadow line at solstice was not merely a curiosity, it was a clock, a calendar, and perhaps a reassurance that the order of the world continued. In time, the sun begins its slow southward retreat after solstice, and the shadows at Giza grow longer with each passing day. And so the plateau rests in its ancient quiet, the pyramids holding their alignment through season after season, patient beyond measure. Near the eastern base of the Great Pyramid at Giza, there stands a structure of extraordinary stillness and quiet grandeur. The Valley Temple of Khafre was built more than 4,000 years ago, set at the edge of the floodplain where the Nile's waters once drew near. Its outer walls are faced with great slabs of polished granite, quarried far to the south and carried slowly up the river by barge. Inside, the halls are lined with blocks of alabaster and limestone so smooth they catch the light like still water on a quiet morning. The floor stones are wide and pale, laid flat and even, worn gently by the passage of countless feet across many centuries. 16 great pillars of polished red granite once stood in the central hall, each one cut square and perfectly proportioned. Between those columns, statues of the pharaoh Khafre were placed in silence, each carved from the same dark diorite stone. The most celebrated of these, now held in a Cairo museum, shows Khafre seated with great composure, a falcon resting gently behind his head. Archaeologists believe this temple served as a place of ritual purification, where the body of the king was prepared before burial. The precision of the stonework here is remarkable even now, the joints between massive blocks fitting so closely that no mortar was ever needed. A long causeway once connected this valley temple to the mortuary temple higher on the plateau, rising gently toward the pyramid above. Just beside the valley temple rests the great Sphinx, gazing quietly eastward as it has done across thousands of quiet years. And so the valley temple endures in its polished silence, a place of immense age and soft, unhurried stillness at the edge of the desert. Across the Giza plateau, the desert wind moves in long, unhurried waves, carrying grains of pale sand across ancient stone. The pyramids stand quietly beneath that vast open sky, their worn limestone faces catching the slow light of the afternoon. For thousands of years, the wind has traced the same paths across this plateau, unhurried and patient as the stone itself. Small eddies of sand curl around the base of the Great Pyramid, spinning briefly before the wind carries them onward again. The ancient Egyptians understood these winds, building their monuments along the west bank of the Nile where the desert air was dry and still. Geologists have found that the fine sand here moves in slow seasonal patterns, drifting northward in summer and retreating again in autumn. The Sphinx sits at the eastern edge of the plateau, its carved sandstone face turned toward the horizon where the wind rises each morning. Over centuries, wind-borne sand buried the Sphinx to its shoulders more than once, the desert slowly, gently reclaiming what hands had shaped. Ancient workers would have felt this same wind on their faces, pausing in the midday heat as the air swept cool across the plateau from the north. The mortar between the pyramid's casing stones holds traces of pollen and dust that drifted here on the wind millennia ago. In the quieter hours before dawn, the wind softens, and the plateau becomes very still, the stone cool and silent beneath the stars. By morning, fresh lines of sand have formed in the shelter of each pyramid's base, delicate as brushstrokes across the pale ground. The wind will keep moving across this plateau long after these narrated words have faded, patient and slow and older than the stones themselves. Standing beside the great plateau of Giza, the second pyramid rises with quiet, enduring presence against the pale desert sky. This is the Pyramid of Khafre, son of Khufu, built around 4,500 years ago on slightly higher ground than its neighbor. Because of its elevated position, Khafre's pyramid appears taller to the eye, though it reaches only 136 meters, just a little shorter than the Great Pyramid beside it. At its peak, a smooth cap of original Tura limestone casing still clings, a pale gleaming crown that once dressed the entire structure. Long ago, the whole pyramid would have shone brilliant white under the Egyptian sun, its polished surface visible from many miles across the desert. The base of Khafre's pyramid measures 215 meters on each side, a vast and perfectly ordered square laid upon the living rock of the plateau. Each massive block was quarried nearby, shaped by hand, and moved slowly into place by thousands of skilled workers over the course of many years. The internal passages are narrow and low, descending gently into the bedrock before rising again to a single burial chamber cut from the natural stone. Within that chamber, the empty red granite sarcophagus of Khafre still rests in its original position, cool and silent after millennia. Around the pyramid, a mortuary temple of fine limestone and red granite once served the rituals of the pharaoh's eternal journey. A long causeway connected that temple to the valley temple below, paved and once roofed, winding gently down toward the edge of the desert. Near the base of that causeway, the great Sphinx keeps its patient watch, carved from the same living limestone bedrock of the Giza plateau. In the stillness of a long desert evening, the plateau settles quietly, and the Pyramid of Khafre stands as it always has, steady and unhurried under the fading sky. Menkaur's pyramid rises quietly at the southern edge of the Giza Plateau, the smallest of the three yet no less ancient in its origins. It stands roughly 65 meters tall, a modest height compared to its neighbors, yet every stone was placed with deliberate and unhurried care. Pharaoh Menkaur commissioned this pyramid during the 4th dynasty, around 2510 BCE, continuing a tradition his grandfather Khufu had begun. The lower courses of its casing were once dressed in smooth red Aswan granite, giving the base a deep warm glow in the desert light. Slowly, over many centuries, most of that granite was carried away for later building projects, leaving the core limestone exposed and open to the sky. On the northern face, a great gash runs down the side, the work of a 12th century caliph who attempted to dismantle the pyramid but abandoned the effort. That wound in the stone has remained open ever since, a quiet reminder of how enduring the pyramid proved to be against human ambition. Beside the main pyramid, 3 smaller satellite structures were built to accompany it, each one aligned with quiet precision on the same sacred ground. One of those subsidiary pyramids may have belonged to a queen, though her name and her story have drifted gently beyond the reach of certain knowledge. A mortuary temple once stood at the foot of the pyramid's eastern face, its floors paved in alabaster that caught and held the softest morning light. From that temple, a long causeway stretched eastward, slowly descending the plateau toward the valley temple waiting at the desert's edge. Inside the pyramid's burial chamber, archaeologists discovered a carved basalt sarcophagus, elegant and dark in color, made to receive the pharaoh's body. That sarcophagus was lost at sea in 1838 when the ship carrying it to England sank off the coast of Portugal, resting still somewhere beneath the water. Scattered quietly around the Great Pyramids of Giza, 3 small pyramids were built for the queens who rested near their kings. These satellite pyramids of the queens stand to the east of Khufu's Great Pyramid, modest in scale yet carefully and deliberately placed. Each of the 3 small pyramids was assigned to one of Khufu's queens, their names echoing gently across 4,500 years. The queens Hetepheres, Meritites, and Henutsyn are believed to have rested in these modest structures beside the grandeur of their husband's monument. Slowly the sand has settled around their bases over the millennia, filling the spaces between ancient stones with a fine golden dust. Each satellite pyramid originally had its own small mortuary chapel on its eastern face, a quiet place for offerings and remembrance. The southernmost of the 3, associated with Queen Henutsyn, was later converted into a temple dedicated to the goddess Isis. In time, this temple to Isis became a place of quiet pilgrimage, drawing visitors who left offerings at the feet of the ancient stones. The Pyramid of Khafre, the second Great Pyramid, also has its own smaller satellite pyramid to its south, resting in calm symmetry. Far away to the south of the Giza Plateau, the satellite pyramids of Menkaur stand in a quiet row, 3 companions to the 3rd pyramid. These 3 small pyramids beside Menkaur were left unfinished, their casing stones incomplete, giving them a rougher and more ancient appearance. Archaeologists have worked gently among these satellite pyramids for many generations, brushing away layers of sand to read the stories beneath. And so the satellite pyramids rest quietly where they have always stood, patient companions to the great monuments rising beside them. Deep within the chambers of the Great Pyramid, workers long ago pressed their hands against freshly laid stone and left behind something quietly remarkable. These marks were not meant for kings or gods, but were simply the everyday writing of the men who built one of the world's greatest wonders. In 1837, the British explorer Howard Vyse discovered hidden chambers above the King's Chamber, sealed for more than 4,000 years. On the walls of those sealed rooms, he found red and black paint markings left by the very crews who hauled the enormous granite blocks into place. The inscriptions included the names of the work gangs themselves, written in hieratic script, a flowing cursive form of ancient Egyptian writing. One group called themselves the Friends of Khufu, another the Drunkards of Menkaure, names that carry a quiet warmth across the centuries. These were not the names of slaves, but of proud and organized teams who took satisfaction in their enormous shared work. Some markings were simple tally marks, counting the stones delivered each day, a record kept honestly in paint and shadow. Others were orientation marks, practical guides to tell workers which way a block should face when it was laid into the growing wall. Slowly, these small human traces remind us that behind every polished surface of the pyramid stood thousands of careful, diligent hands. In time, scholars learned that the workers lived in a well-organized bakery town nearby, fed and cared for by the pharaoh's administration. The graffiti they left behind is among the most personal evidence we have that real people, with names and pride, raised these ancient stones. And somewhere far above the desert floor, sealed in quiet stone, those painted names rest still, unhurried by the passing of 4,000 years. The Great Pyramid of Giza rises from the desert plateau with a mathematical exactness that still quietly astonishes those who study it. Its 4 base sides, each measuring roughly 230 meters, align with the cardinal directions with an accuracy of less than a fraction of a single degree. Ancient builders achieved this alignment without modern instruments, reading only the stars and the slow arc of the sun across the sky. The pyramid's base is nearly perfectly level, varying by less than 2 centimeters across the entire platform, an extraordinary feat of ancient engineering. Each of the roughly 2.3 million stone blocks was cut and placed with a care and patience that speaks of deep, unhurried devotion. The ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to its height closely approximates 2 times pi, a relationship mathematicians recognize with quiet wonder. Whether this proportion was intentional or an elegant consequence of the builder's measuring tools, no one today can say with certainty. The slope of each face holds an angle of approximately 51 degrees and 52 minutes, a precise measurement repeated on all 4 sides. Across thousands of years, the outer casing stones of polished white limestone once made the pyramid gleam brilliantly in the desert sun. Only a small number of those original casing stones remain today, resting quietly near the pyramid's base like pale memories of its former surface. The king's chamber at the pyramid's heart is constructed from red Aswan granite, its walls forming a rectangle of nearly perfect proportion. The granite ceiling beams above the chamber weigh up to 70 tons each, set in place with a precision that has kept them stable for 45 centuries. The pyramid rests quietly now in the desert light, its mathematical harmony woven into every stone, patient and enduring across the long passage of time. Beneath the great plateau of Giza, far below the stone and sand, lies a chamber carved deep into the living bedrock. This subterranean chamber is the lowest of the 3 main spaces within the Great Pyramid, cut directly into the earth itself. Slowly, as you imagine descending the long descending passage, the air around you grows still and the stone walls draw close on either side. The passage slopes downward at a gentle angle, cut with remarkable precision through solid rock for over 90 meters. At the bottom of this long descent, the subterranean chamber opens into a rough and unfinished space, unlike the polished rooms above. Its ceiling is low and irregular, the stone untouched by the smoothing tools that shaped the chambers higher within the pyramid. In the eastern wall of this chamber, there is a small pit dug into the floor, its purpose still quietly debated among those who study these stones. Some scholars believe the chamber was begun as the original burial place, then quietly abandoned as the pyramid's design changed and grew upward. Others suggest the unfinished state was always intended, left deliberately as part of a ritual understanding of the earth beneath. The rock in which this space was carved is a dense yellowish limestone, the same ancient seabed that once lay beneath warm shallow waters. Far above, the desert light plays across the pyramid's worn stone surface, while far below, this quiet chamber holds its silence. The chamber measures roughly 14 meters from east to west and 8 meters from north to south, a modest space within so vast a monument. In time, the mind grows quiet, resting here in the stillness of ancient stone, held gently by the patience of a structure 4,000 years old. Long ago, the Great Pyramid of Giza was clothed in a brilliant mantle of white limestone, polished so finely it shone across the desert. These outer casing stones were quarried from the fine-grained Tura limestone beds along the eastern bank of the Nile, far across the water. Each stone was shaped and fitted with extraordinary care, its surfaces ground smooth until no gap could be felt between one block and the next. Ancient Greek visitors wrote of the pyramids gleaming like lanterns on the horizon, visible for many miles across the flat desert plain. The white surface would have caught the rising sun each morning, flooding the plateau with a warm, reflected glow. Scholars estimate there were originally about 144,000 of these casing stones covering the Great Pyramid alone, each weighing several tons. Over the centuries, earthquakes loosened many of these stones from the pyramid's face, leaving them ready to be carried away. Beginning in the 14th century, builders of medieval Cairo quarried the fallen casing stones to construct mosques and palaces in the city. And so the gleaming white skin of the pyramid slowly disappeared, stone by stone, carried south along the river to the growing city. At the base of the Great Pyramid today, a small number of the original casing stones still rest in place, smooth and pale against the rougher core blocks above. Touching one of these remaining stones, visitors find the surface still finely worked, a quiet remnant of how the whole structure once appeared. Khufu's pyramid, the second Great Pyramid on the plateau, still wears its original casing stones near its very summit, a pale cap against the blue sky. That crown of white stone at Khufu's peak is a soft reminder of what the entire Giza plateau once looked like, shining and still. Deep within the Great Pyramid, a long ascending passage opens slowly into one of the most remarkable spaces ever carved from ancient stone. The Grand Gallery stretches nearly 47 meters in length, a soaring corridor with walls that rise in graceful overlapping layers toward the ceiling above. Each layer of the corbelled walls projects slightly inward from the one below, a technique that allowed ancient builders to span a great width without a true arch. 7 such corbels rise on each side, stepping closer and closer together until the topmost slabs form a narrow ceiling some 8 meters above the gallery floor. The gallery floor is divided by a central ramp of smooth stone, flanked on either side by a lower platform with a series of small rectangular niches cut into it. The purpose of those niches remains a quiet puzzle, with some researchers suggesting they once held wooden beams used during the original construction. Others have proposed the niches supported scaffolding or were part of a system for moving the enormous granite blocks toward the king's chamber above. The corbelled technique itself was not unique to Giza, appearing in other structures across ancient Egypt and the wider ancient world, yet here it reaches a particular refinement. The limestone blocks used in the corbels are fitted with extraordinary precision, their surfaces meeting so closely that the joints are nearly invisible to the eye. Standing at the lower entrance of the gallery, the ascending slope draws the eye gently upward along a path that has remained unchanged for more than 4,000 years. Scholars have measured the gallery's angle of inclination at roughly 26 degrees, the same gentle rise that carries through the pyramid's internal passages. At the upper end of the gallery, a low horizontal passage leads onward into the antechamber and then into the king's chamber beyond. The Grand Gallery remains one of the finest achievements of ancient Egyptian construction, a calm and enduring testament to the patience and skill of those who built it. Deep beneath the ancient sands of Giza, a fleet of timbers had rested in silence for more than 4,000 years. In 1954, Egyptian archaeologist Kamal El-Malik uncovered a sealed limestone pit along the southern face of the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Inside, laid in careful sections, were the dismantled pieces of a grand wooden vessel, preserved by the dry desert air across the millennia. The cedar timbers had come from the forests of Lebanon, carried across the sea to serve the pharaoh in his eternal journey. Over the following years, restorer Ahmed Youssef Mustafa gently fitted the 1,200 separate pieces back together, one by one. The boat measured 43 meters in length, a graceful, elegant hull that had never touched the waters of the Nile. Its purpose was not sailing but ceremony, believed to carry the soul of the king across the celestial sky after death. The vessel is known today as the Khufu ship, the oldest and most complete ship ever recovered from the ancient world. Ropemakers of ancient Egypt had used plant fibers to lash the hull planks together, a technique that allowed the wood to swell and tighten in water. Traces of reed and blue-gray paint were found on certain timbers, hinting at the richly decorated vessel that once floated in ceremony. A second sealed pit, discovered beside the first, held another boat still untouched, quietly waiting beneath its limestone cover. The second boat was carefully excavated decades later, its ancient timbers slowly lifted into the open air for the first time in millennia. Both vessels rest now in museums beside the pyramid that sheltered them, serene witnesses to a civilization that shaped the ancient world. Along the ancient walls of Giza, hieroglyphs were carved directly into the living rock, each symbol placed with quiet deliberation by ancient craftsmen. The limestone cliffs surrounding the Giza plateau offered a natural canvas, and for thousands of years, skilled scribes pressed their tools gently into the stone. Each hieroglyphic symbol carried meaning beyond decoration, recording the names of pharaohs, the offerings made to gods, and the prayers of those who worked nearby. Some inscriptions were carved into the bedrock itself, the solid foundation beneath the pyramids, as though the words needed to be anchored to the earth forever. The workers who quarried stone for the Great Pyramid left their own marks in the rock, simple proud graffiti naming their crews and their devotion. One inscription discovered in a relieving chamber above the king's chamber names the crew who built it, calling themselves the Friends of Khufu, preserved in quiet stone. Hieroglyphs carved into living rock around the Sphinx temple record rituals performed over centuries, layered one upon another like the slow rings of a very old tree. The rock-cut tombs of Giza's mastaba fields are lined with hieroglyphic texts describing the lives of nobles, their estates, their families, and their hopes for eternity. In the Valley Temple of Khafre, smooth granite walls once displayed inscriptions recording royal jubilees, the stone still wearing the faint impressions of ancient tools. Some hieroglyphs were not simply carved but also painted, the pigments long faded, yet the shallow cuts remain visible as the light moves slowly across the stone. Scribes who worked at Giza were trained from childhood, learning thousands of symbols, their hands moving with calm practiced certainty across the surface of the rock. The cartouches of pharaohs Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure appear carved into rock faces across the plateau, each oval frame enclosing a name meant to last forever. And so the rock itself became a kind of memory, holding within its grain the quiet voices of an ancient civilization, patient and still beneath the open sky.